story applies to what kind of content you're making. Reviews, I can never been harder. It's like important to surprise your audience.
There is a lost art to YouTube storytelling. We all know that feeling of being sucked into a video, so invested that nothing could take us away. Well, that feeling is not created by accident. It looks like this. And whether you make talking head videos, challenges, or cinematic masterpieces, you cannot ignore it. Because when you understand story, it will allow you to make a real impact on the viewer, building a relationship between you that is hard to break. And this relationship is your most powerful tool on YouTube. It's what will allow you to start a channel so good that your viewers will literally share it with their friends. And in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how story works, so that you can make better videos that not only go viral, but make people feel something. Now, everyone props up the word story on some pedestal, like it's some magic thing that you need to put in your videos. But story is not just this diagram that they teach you in high school English class. It's not a fill-in-the-blank process, and there are a million ways to tell them. Check out this 15-second sequence by Mr. Beast. The video shows that they're on the first hour of the challenge, and then the story starts. They first need to build a shelter. Then he reveals how he will build the shelter. Then he sets the stakes of the building because it will be dark soon. And therefore it makes you so much more invested because they're on a time crunch. But it gets even more intense because it's about to storm. So they quickly build the shelter and then show you the entire process of doing it. This is extremely simple, but it's storytelling mastery. Jimmy understands that story is a flow of information that makes a viewer feel or understand something. He shows them both what is happening in real time and makes them feel unsure about the future, teasing that it will rain. And I'm about to show you how this key YouTube principle actually works so you can copy it and have viewers glued to your videos. This is a river. And imagine there is someone right here. Right now, he is drowning. But if we add stepping stones, then he'll be able to walk down the river without a problem. Now, these stepping stones are exactly what you say and what you show in your videos. For example, this one could be you talking about the concept or what you're currently doing. This could be you showing a B-roll shot of yourself going to another location. This one could be you at that location sharing a piece about your life. This could be another shot of you going to another location, and then so on and so on. When this happens, the viewer will be able to seamlessly jump from stepping stone to stepping stone without falling in the river. However, if you forget a piece of your video, if you forget to show how you got to a certain location, if you forget to film at a certain location that you said you were going to, the viewer is going to get lost and they are going to fall in the river. This is your viewer drowning, and that's exactly what you don't want. Now, these stepping stones could be a lot of things. They could be B-roll, they could be talking head, they could even be the music in your videos, text, animations, really any element that you can add that helps the viewer understand what's going on. Because the human brain processes things like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. The human brain does not go 1 to 5. You have to take it step by step, or else it's going to get extremely lost. And when a viewer becomes lost, they no longer want to stay on the video because that feeling makes them unsatisfied and anxious. And no one wants to feel like that, especially while watching a YouTube video. So as the viewer is jumping from stone to stone, your job as the storyteller is to make them not fall in. Give them a clear path that they can follow to get to the end of the river. So if you don't keep this in mind, the viewer will get swept down the river and get lost because all the information wasn't in order. But if you can create your story in a way where the viewer understands what's going on, they clearly know exactly what the feeling is, they know exactly what scene they're in, they know where the next scene could be, and they see the process of getting to that next scene, your viewer is going to be way more satisfied and your retention is going to go way up. Now, everything is working against your story. Think of it like gravity pulling it down. It's our job as creators to push it back up and keep it there by using the 3 storytelling elements. Because once you understand what they are and how they work, you'll be able to make your viewers so much more invested in your videos, which will lead to you making a real impact on them. And then they'll turn into a loyal subscriber for life. The first of these storytelling elements is just words. I mean, what you say is the backbone of your video. So just like Mr. Beast, if you need to build a shelter, then say that. Or if you're teaching someone about the latest iPhone, then talk about each new feature. The next element of an engaging story is your visuals. Mr. Beast doesn't say, oh, I'm gonna go build a shelter, and then it cuts to him being done with the shelter. He shows him actually building it. And that comes back to one of the most important YouTube principles, show, don't tell. You shouldn't just talk about the new iPhone feature, show it in use. The third is sound, during and after you film. If you're making a travel film, recording the train audio saying, Next stop, Shibuya Station, is a great way to advance the story through audio, not to mention adding sound effects on your videos to make them more engaging. Now, none of these elements on their own are special, but when you put them together, you create a mosaic of elements that bring the viewer into your world, creating a simple linear path for your viewers to follow and not get swept down the river. But like I said, having words, visuals, and sounds alone does not make a good story. You need to learn how to put them together to create some sort of journey. And once you understand how to take your viewer from beginning to end, or from seeking information to understanding information, you will never have to worry about views on YouTube again, because your content will be so good that people can't help but watch. And the way to do this is called forward motion. The information that you present pushes the story to its next step. Now I want you to listen to this story. I got up at 6 a.m. and I did one last check in my bag to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything for my big Argentina trip. I hopped in the car, arrived at the airport, and then hugged my parents goodbye. I thought to myself, this is my first big trip outside of the country. I am so excited. We boarded the plane and took off without any problems. But all of a sudden I heard a gigantic boom and the plane started shaking. Everyone around me was dead silent, frantically looking around at each other. I raised up my window shade and looked out in terror as I saw an orange glow coming from the plane engine. If you're anything like me, you want to know what happens next in that story. The reason why you feel that way is due to forward motion. So the first thing we did in that story is just get up, right? That's the first step. That's initiating the forward motion in the story. So you got up, you packed your stuff, you're giving them a step-by-step explanation of what is happening. And again, it doesn't just come down to what you're doing. Like for example, when I said, I'm so excited, like we went to the airport and I hugged my parents goodbye and I thought, oh my God, I'm so excited for my first Argentina trip. That is also a piece of forward motion because you're helping the viewer understand what thoughts are in that person's head, what they're feeling, and that's part of the entire experience, right? Next, we do very textbook forward motion where the plane takes off. That's the next step. And then we hear that everything's going good, but suddenly something happens, right? It's still forward motion. It's forward motion, and then we're introducing something called tension, which we'll talk about later. But again, as I raise the window shade, just forward motion. I'm just moving the story forward one step at a time. Now let's take a look at this story without any forward motion. I got up at 6 a.m., I went in the car, I went in the airport and hugged my parents. I'm excited. The plane took off. The plane caught on fire. I was scared. The story is so much more boring. There's no forward motion. We're not putting any, and then this happened. But I was feeling this way. And then I did this thing. You know, it's just like I took off. I went to the airport. The plane caught on fire, right? There's no tension, there's no stakes, there's nothing in there. The only thing in there is just like what you're doing. And forward motion counteracts that because you're basically laying out how you got to that place. Like I hopped in the car, you know, I was really excited. There's a lot of elements to it. It's not just, oh, I went to the airport. It's, I hopped in the car, I'm feeling super excited, my parents are nervous, I'm feeling anxious but excited for my first ever international trip, right? There's just a lot more detail in there. And once you understand this concept, it's going to help you so much because it'll allow you to make your videos actually entertaining. Because a lot of people, when they're doing like tech reviews or informational videos, they're just like, the iPhone has this feature, and then it has this feature. Whereas if you say, you know, the iPhone has this feature and I'm getting so excited about it because this thing was not around last year, but now we can do this thing because of this thing. And guess what? It even has a crazier future, right? So it just is, it has more emotion, it has more excitement, has more forward motion, it has a bit of everything. But let me show you how this actually looks on a YouTube video, because it is one of the most important parts of telling a story. When a story moves forward, people become interested. And once you understand how everyday people are using forward motion to make their stories more engaging, it'll be much easier for you to replicate it and blow up. Let's look at one of the best storytellers on YouTube, Life of Riza. Her video, all you have to do is start, is a masterclass on forward motion.
But in my time away, living like a recluse, I at least managed to document a few things. I read a few books, I turned another year older, made time for some hobbies, and went out into the world for a bit.
This is all forward motion. She is progressing the story by showing what she's been doing over the last few months. And she doesn't only say it, but she shows it. This keeps the viewer engaged as they are getting context for the rest of the video. Simply adding in words, shots, B-roll, and music, showing a forward progression is the basic fundamental to any story. But this alone can get boring. What you need is to catch a plane engine on fire. The reason why my first story was engaging was because I added tension. And if you can properly add this in your videos, it will keep your viewers hooked and your retention graphs looking like this. And now we are going to look at one of the most powerful concepts on YouTube called tension. And without this, your videos are nothing. I use this all the time in my own stuff and on all my client stuff, and it essentially makes the viewers addicted to your videos. It keeps them watching, and it's just a powerhouse for retention. So what is tension? Let's go over it. So tension is essentially the feeling that you create when you create uncertainty and add stakes. So what is a stake? A stake is the cost of not achieving something. So if I don't achieve this, then I'll have to do this. If I don't win the challenge, then I have to lose 100K. So Mr. Beast does this extremely well. For example, in all of his videos, he'll be like, you either have to do this challenge, and if you don't do it, you're gonna lose hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. For example, if we look at Mac, in the most recent series, he lost $800,000 2 times. And those were some of Mr. Beast's best videos because the tension was so high. If he didn't complete the challenge, which he didn't, he was gonna lose 800K. And that actually happened twice, but it made for the third video where he won the $800,000 so much better because Mac had been working for it. The tension was high because the stakes were so high. He was on his last chance. Mr. Beast gave him 3 chances. If he didn't do it in 3, he was not gonna get to try again. So that is what a stake is. That could also be if you do a fitness video, losing 20 pounds in 100 days. If I don't do it, I'll have to, pay my sister $10,000. Another example is going without social media for 30 days, and every time you go on social media, you would have to take an ice bath. Right? So that's creating stakes. And it's super important for you guys to think about how you can add this into your videos, because without it, the viewer has less of a reason to stick around. Because whether you win or lose, especially in challenge formats, if there's no stake, it doesn't mean anything. But how can you incorporate this in educational videos? Well, when I tell you guys about certain concepts on YouTube, for example, tension, if you don't use it in your videos, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to get views. That is a stake. That is me adding a stake into this video. If you guys don't use this, it's true, you're not gonna get as many views as if you do. What that does when I say that is it puts it in your mind that, okay, I need to pay attention and I need to listen to this because there is a big stake at hand. When I talk about title and thumbnails, if you don't have a good title and thumbnail, you're not gonna get views. You're not gonna get the views that you really deserve. You put all this hard work into a YouTube video and then you don't really have anything to show for it if your simple title and thumbnail doesn't work, right? So that's a stake that I create. Or if we were talking about an investing channel, if you don't understand this concept about investing, it's going to literally lose you hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? If a YouTuber said that, you would probably listen because $100,000 is a lot of money. For example, in that airplane story, it was just way more interesting because there was a stake at hand, because there was tension. We added that the plane caught on fire, and obviously with that, there's a big stake of you dying, right? That's not good. So you wanna know what happens. You wanna know if that person survives, because naturally we want to resolve tension. So once you create tension, it has to be resolved down the line. But what you do is you resolve that tension at the end of your video, and that allows you to keep the viewer watching throughout the whole thing. Another really good example of tension is iPhone versus Android. Now, people have tied their identities to these things, so that means if the Android is better than the iPhone, then iPhone people are going to lose it. They're gonna be like, damn, that sucks. And Android people are gonna be like, let's go. That's what I want, right? And if it's the other way around, then the iPhone people would be like, dang, that's sick. I knew I was right. And the Android people are gonna be like, dang. And that creates tension. And that's why we like to watch sports, by the way. For example, we have one team that we love, that we're like, dang, let's win it, let's do it. And then when you win, it's great. Like, you're super happy for your team. But when you lose, you're like, dang. We watch it either way though. And the reason for that is because it creates tension. We don't know the outcome and we want to know the outcome. And because tension means that stakes are high and people are engaged, what you can do is when you resolve that tension, you can put in what you're really trying to say. For example, this is exactly what Yes Theory does. They have a really positive message about saying yes to strangers. But what they do, how they get that message across, is they go skydiving with strangers. Now, for one, there's that tension when they're asking the stranger, being like, hey, do you wanna come skydiving? That creates tension because, most people are not confident enough to go out and ask a stranger, right? It's just a weird thing to do. And they're like, okay, are these guys gonna be okay? Like, is it gonna be like super cringe? I don't know. But once they get that person, and then the stakes become on the stranger itself. He's like, he's scared. They're building up to this big jump. And finally, at the climax, when the tension is resolved, when they jump out of the plane and they land on the ground, they insert that message of like, if you didn't say yes to this, you would not have lived this crazy and fulfilling experience. And that's where they hide their message, right after that tension, right in the maximum climax of that tension. And that's where you should put your message as well. That's a way to hide your vegetables, hide what you really want to say to people, and tell it to them when they're most engaged. An example with that airplane story that we were talking about. If that person sprung into action, saved a lot of people, you could insert the lesson to be brave. Be a brave person, right? And once they've saved everyone, that's the perfect time to slip that in there, because obviously we want more brave people in this world, right? And that's where you can essentially get your message across. And one of the most famous YouTubers does this perfectly. You see, Casey never directly talks about the bike lanes. If it was a simple sit down talking head video complaining about the bike lanes in New York City, it probably would have only gotten a couple hundred views. But because he showed the problem by crashing into all of these different obstacles blocking his way, the point was made much stronger. This is the whole idea of Ernest Hemingway's Iceberg theory, and he used it to write some of the best stories of the last 100 years. Here's how it works. This is your story. This is what you say, and this is what you don't say. This is a concept by one of the greatest writers of all time, Ernest Hemingway, and all of the best YouTubers use it. The reason why they do this is because viewer attention spans are so low. So to get a big message across, you only have a little bit of time. And a lot of the big YouTubers that I am close with do this on every single video. For example, Mr. Beast, he has multiple terabytes of footage for every single video that he makes. He has thousands of hours of content for each video, but you only see 20 minutes of it. Why is that? It's because viewer attention spans are so low. How much can you cut out of your video and still have it make sense? That is exactly what you need to focus on if you want people to stay. For example, on a lot of my videos, I film for way longer than you actually see. All these whiteboard sections, obviously I script out my stuff too, but in my script, I'll go through and I'll cut out like 5 minutes before I even start recording. And then I'll tell my editor, I'll be like, hey, if you see any points that need to be cut out, just cut them. Don't ask me. If you think that it needs to be cut, just cut it. And if the video still works without that section in there, then that means that you have made a positive change to the video. Now, obviously there's nuance to this. You should definitely add more stuff than just the bare minimum, but really be very picky about what you add in your videos and try to cut it down by a ton. If you look at Joe Fazer, a fitness YouTuber, his videos, he'll go to an entire country, he'll film hundreds of hours of content where he, tries like the world's best gym, cheapest gym, all of that stuff, and then he'll cut that down to like 3 or 4 minutes. If you look at David Dobrik, back in the day, he would cut down all of his vlogs to 4 minutes, even though he was traveling with friends for like weeks, had so much good content that a lot of people would have watched, but he cut so much of it out because he just wanted the best of the best in there. And that's exactly why he did so well. So if you have any section in your video that you can cut it and still have the video make sense and still have the video get your point across, then do it. But how does this actually apply to your YouTube scripts? And how can you implement this to get a ton more views? Let's do an example from an education channel talking about the newest tech. Marques Brownlee does this beautifully. If you look closely, Marcus doesn't say that everyday drivers are being careless by taking videos of the Cybertruck. He also doesn't mention that if people are recording with their phones, they're much more likely to crash. He simply shows that happening and then lets the viewer make his own conclusion. It all goes back to the principle show don't tell. And it really helps him not repeat himself, which is one of the biggest mistakes that I see beginners making. He just shows it and then moves on. And this is just one of the principles that you need to make viral videos and tell amazing stories. But I can't fit all of them into this 10 to 20 minute YouTube video. So that's why I made a free YouTube course with over 12 hours of content showing you everything that you need to know to grow from 0 to 100,000 subscribers in 2024. We give away everything that you need to know to grow a massive YouTube channel for free. And we even have a whole module on storytelling where we give you the step-by-step process to hook, retain, and convert your viewers into subscribers. So watch this video right here where I'll show you what you'll learn, how to get access, and how you can use it to blow up on YouTube in 2024. Thanks and have a great day.